Hi, welcome back to session 5. Congratulations, you made it all the way through. Way to go. All right, well, let's talk about how to wrap all of this up. And we're going to start by saying this, that, there's a problem with this strategy. And you're like, wait a minute, I've spent 4 days watching you on these videos, and now you're going to tell me there's a problem with it? Well, here's the problem, is that it's easy to start a bunch of groups for a 6-week series. That's easy. It's easy to start dozens of groups, hundreds of groups. But groups will spring up like wildflowers and then they will just disappear. Some groups won't even start. So once you open this up, it's kind of like the Wild West. And I know you're thinking at this point, okay, Alan, you're not telling me any good news here. Well, let's get to the good news. There is a solution, and the solution is a system. See, when you don't know the leader very well, give them a coach. When new leaders get cold feet, give them a coach. When new groups fail, give them a coach. Let me tell you how I learned about this the hard way. You see, it used to be I recruited all of the leaders, I coached all of the leaders, I trained all of the leaders, and our groups got stuck at 30%. It wasn't my senior pastor's fault. It wasn't my coach's fault. It wasn't my new leader's fault. It wasn't my prospective leader's fault. It was my fault. I refused to give people permission and opportunity to lead groups. I refused to empower others to lead at a higher level. I refused to try new things. I refused to multiply myself. Giving people permission and opportunity, it wasn't as risky as I thought. Now, granted, when we started this out, it was chaos. But at least now we've dialed it in with the churches that I'm working with, that we have organized chaos. You see, my senior pastor was willing when I aligned groups with where he was going. When I was fighting against him, when I was complaining about why doesn't he promote groups more or whatever, that wasn't getting me anywhere. When I was trying to do it all myself, that wasn't getting me anywhere. But when I aligned with where my pastor was headed, we got somewhere very quickly. Coaches did a great job when I got out of their way. First I started with no coaches. I actually did a whole podcast on this for the Small Group Network, but I had no coaches. That didn't work. I had coaches, but then I did all the work. That didn't work. But finally, when I partnered with my coaches, that worked. So here's what I learned. People don't need me as much as I hope they did. People don't need me as much as I hope they did. My biggest problem was between my own 2 ears. It was my thinking. I've got to recruit the leaders. I've got to train the leaders. I've got to coach the leaders. I've got to keep control of this thing. I need to have quality control. And God said, Alan, when you say quality control, quality is your excuse. You just want control. Ouch. Once I changed my thinking, my senior pastor was more engaged with groups than ever before. Our groups doubled twice in 1 year. Coaches flourished when I shared leadership with them. Coaching worked when it was based on a relationship. We started with a relationship. We started with a connection. People that they knew that were leaders, that they coached the people that they knew. Nobody needed as much training as I assumed. I got rid of monthly training meetings a long time ago. I went to 2 meetings a year, and that was it. So what's the system? Well, you delayed the requirements for the trial run. We talked about that. We didn't advertise these groups, which was safer for them and safer for us. They could invite people that they knew. We didn't send any strangers there, and we didn't have to get them completely up to speed and go through all the training and meet all the qualifications before they could launch. Every new group was given the curriculum. We knew what they were studying. We knew the teaching in the group was the teaching from our pastor on the video because we didn't want them teaching in the group. And They didn't want to be the Bible teacher. They weren't the Bible expert. It worked out. And then every new leader had a coach. Every new leader had a coach. We would bring them to a briefing. We would give them a brief briefing, 10, 15 minutes. But the most important part of that briefing was every new leader left that room with an experienced leader who was willing to walk alongside them and help them. So we had a brief initial training, and then we phased back the regular training over time. I met with 8 people or less. So initially, I was in a smaller church of 800 on the weekend. I had my 8 were my coaches. Then I went to a church of 6,500, and my 8 were a leadership team. And the leadership team had coaches, and the coaches then worked with leaders. But I only met with 8 people or less. Every leader has different training needs. So you wonder why they don't show up for your meetings. You wonder why they don't respond. Well, because every leader is different. And so they'll respond when you train them on the things that they need training for, but they won't respond if you take a mature leader and you sit them in a room with a bunch of new leaders. They're not going to respond to that because they've been there, done that a long time ago. But the other thing is sometimes what the leader needs to talk about or what the leader's facing in their group is only significant to their group. And so that's more of a coaching opportunity than training every group about the needs of one, leader. Every leader has different coaching needs. Developing a coaching structure is the hardest work of small group ministry. I will admit this to you flat out. Developing a coaching structure is the hardest work of small group ministry. Probably the hardest part of it is getting yourself to back off and letting the coaches do their job. At least that was my problem. But coaching is scalable. It's effective and it's essential. Once you have your coaching structure in place, then you can build on that. And you're not, when you go from dozens of groups to hundreds of groups, you don't have to rebuild it. It will scale. So this is the sweet spot. This is the place I want you to get. Your senior pastor recruits the group leaders. The new leaders gather the groups. And then you invest in building the coaching structure and training. So you're not recruiting leaders anymore. You're not placing people into groups anymore. You put your effort into the coaching structure and training, and you will get further faster with this system. Your people will live in obedience to the Great Commission because we're all called to go and make disciples. And the more people that we have in our church that are obedient to Jesus, the better off we are, right? So let me tell you about my 12-month coaching group. You knew this was coming, okay? And if you stick with me, give me 5 minutes and I'm going to give you something for free today. Deal? Okay. So my 12-month coaching group, we have these goals. We want to engage your senior pastor. We want to recruit more leaders than ever before. And I've done that with every group that I've worked with. I've done it with every group from 2019, 2020, 2021, now 2022. You connect more people into groups, develop an effective coaching structure, use training that works for everybody, which is not the same training for everybody, by the way. Monitor the metrics that matter. Train future leaders in your groups. Multiply groups in less painful ways. Make disciples who make disciples. Reach your congregation and your community. See, the churches that I've coached have started over 16,000 groups in the last 11 years. Those groups have connected over 125,000 people into groups. Some have more than doubled the groups than their weekend worship attendance. I'll read that correctly. Some have more than double their weekend worship attendance in groups. Could you imagine? One had 176 more groups in 2021 than in 2019. Doing exactly the things that I'm talking about here. More groups, more organization, less stress. How does that sound? Better discipleship, better care, better outreach. So the 12-month coaching group works like this, that twice monthly the group meets for 6 months with 7 other churches, because online groups shouldn't be bigger than the Brady Bunch, so me and 8 churches. 7 other churches to discuss best practices. So these are best practices that I've gained from working with over 1,500 churches in the last 17 years. Then you would have a monthly one-on-one coaching session with me to customize the best practices to your church, because no 2 churches are the same. We have different size churches, different denominations, different regions of the world, different ethnicities, different socioeconomic factors. There's a lot different cultures. So what we want to do is find the place where the best practices are going to intersect with your church's culture. And that's our sweet spot where we're going to be able to develop a lot of groups in your church. But this is not cookie cutter. Every church is different. And right now I'm working with 20 churches, and we are doing 20 different versions of the same thing. We're doing what's going to work in their particular environment. You would get templates, timelines, examples, and samples, timelines of how to do a group launch, templates for how to create a curriculum, examples of what exactly to say on the weekend to get people to step up to lead a group. All kinds of examples, things that I've collected over the years from churches that I've worked with, as well as churches that I've served in. You would get 5 of my books. You would get 3 of my online courses. We do kind of a lecture lab model. So you would read a chapter, you would watch a video prior to our group meeting. We would meet as a group to discuss, and then there would be an assignment in the workbook to follow up after. It's going to take about an hour a week of your time. That's it. So as a thank you for sitting through this and sitting through my little commercial, I want to give you my course that's called 3 Keys to Lasting Groups. And so if you go to alanwhite.org/courses, when you go into the checkout, use the code thank you, all capital letters, no spaces. Use the code thank you, and you'll receive the course for free. You do not need to put in any payment information. You do need to register, but then once you've registered, then you put thank you in there, and it's not going to charge you anything ever, unless you buy something else. All right. So the 12-month coaching group, 6 months of coaching twice a month as a group, 12 months one-on-one, all 5 books, 3 online courses, templates, timelines, samples, examples. If you're looking for a database, I think the best small group database, best church database in the world is Church Teams, and you can get a significant discount to sign up for Church Teams. You don't have to do that. The 12-month group, the cost is this. It's $525 a month for 6 months. Or if you want to spread that out over 12 months, it's $275 a month. Or if you want a little discount, you can save about 5% by paying in advance or paying when you sign up, and it's $2,995. I had a pastor whose church just increased their groups significantly. They went from 30% in groups to 42% in groups in one alignment series. And I was texting with the pastor saying, what do you think? And he said, Alan, I think you need to raise your rates. Well, I'm not raising my rates right now. So these prices are good through December 31st of 2021. And then prices are going to go up in the next year. But anyway, get in now. All right. Here's the other thing. There's a limitation. And the limitation is when all 8 spots in the group are full, the group is closed, and then you can wait for the next group to roll around. Typically, I start one in January of every year. Sometimes I start a group in July. It just depends on the need. So the group is full either when the 8 spots are full or when the group start date rolls around. Usually the group fills up before the start date hits. If you register now, if you register prior to the start date, I start January 1st, I start July 1st, maybe July 1st. I don't know if I'm going to do that one or not. If you register prior, then you will get a one-on-one coaching session every month prior to when the group starts. And then, of course, when the group starts, the 12 months that follow. So think about that. You get a little bit of a bonus, and you get a little bit of discount if you pay in full. So are you ready to sign up? If you're ready to sign up, you can contact me, Alan at alanwhite.org, or you can call my cell phone. It's there on the screen, 949-235-7428. And we'll talk about your church and whether this will work for you. If it won't work for you, I will tell you straight up that I don't think this is the right thing for you. I don't want to take your money and not deliver something that's going to be effective for your church. So if you want to at least have a conversation about what's going on at your church, contact me and we'll set up a time to talk 20, 30 minutes and find out what's going on in your church and see if you're a good fit for this. See if I'm a good fit for you, right? So anyway, contact me if you're interested. Thank you very much for spending the last 5 days for me. I wish you well. I hope that your year is outstanding with your groups. I know there's still a lot of uncertainty. I know there's still a lot of new things to try, new things to learn. I would love to walk alongside you and share the things that I've learned since March of 2022, or 2020 rather. If that works out, that would be great. If not, I wish you well. God bless. Have a great rest of your day.